there, wormies! Different Not Less is a neurodivergence guide to embracing your true self and finding your happily ever after. So let's talk about what it really means to be your authentic, weird, and wormy self as we dive into this week's book, written by Chloé Hayden, a young woman on the autism spectrum. Welcome to my channel. You really have come to the right place to be your authentic, weird, and wormy self. I'm Hannah. I have autism and ADHD, and I make weekly videos rating the representation of neurodiversity in the media so you can make an informed decision on what to read or watch. Hit that like and subscribe button to join the neurodiverse bookworm family so you don't miss out on the latest recommendation. Growing up, Chloé Hayden felt like she'd crash landed on an alien planet where nothing made sense. She knew from a young age that her mind and identity, who she was at her very core, was not valued by the wider community outside her family. She fell in love with fairy tales and throughout the book uses them frequently as analogies to her own experience. Chloé hopes that her story will help other neurodivergent young women embrace their uniqueness and find the confidence to be unapologetically themselves. According to Judy Singer in her blog, Reflections on Neurodiversity, quoted in the author's note at the beginning of the book, neurodiversity is a state of nature to be respected, an analytical tool for examining social issues, and an argument for the conservation and facilitation of human diversity. It is not a synonym for neurological disorder. Neurodiversity recognizes that neurological differences are not inherently bad or problematic, but simply the result of natural variations in the human genome and our diverse human population. I devoured the book Different Not Less in under a day, despite being nearly an inch thick. It's super light and it feels great in my hands. Information is organized clearly with chapters divided into subheadings and gray boxes too for easier skimming. It's chatty and funny and a captivating read. Sometimes it comes across as sheltered and naive, maybe a bit privileged, but it's 100% authentic. Chapter 1, Growing Up Quirky, paints a picture of her sensory issues and childhood differences, which no one saw as anything more than just a little weird and quirky, but not autistic. She talks about the script for life that everyone is given. Every single one of us is given a black and white manual of how and who we have to be in every aspect of our lives. Some of us are comfortable with that manual. Our neurotypes, cultures, and identities already fit in with what our family, peers, and culture see as normal. These invisible rules are accepted and followed. But for those who can't or don't or choose not to, the script often starts like this. You're too young to understand. You'll grow to accept it. Oh well, life isn't fair. Society assumes that eventually we'll fade into an acceptance of what we should be, that we'll silence ourselves into a submission of the ideologies and expectations we've been taught. Divergent thoughts, ideas, and emotions are pushed aside with the idea that eventually we'll learn to simply conform. But the thing that stood out most for me in this chapter was this quote. Society often accepts differences in children, but it's not acceptance so much as it is a confidence that those differences will fade. And that's so unfortunate. I can't understand why people like to say things like variety is the spice of life and then go ahead and get all upset about differences. Like, what's the big deal? You should be able to be yourself, quirky, weird, different, whatever, and be that completely unashamedly, whether adult or child. And I can't understand, it just blows my mind how people don't appreciate these differences. Chapter 2, titled School, it starts out with a dramatic description of Chloe's first week in hell. Well, that's what she called school. And her continuing and desperate despair that eventually turned into physical illness brought on by the stress of trying to survive in a system that foundationally opposes neurodiversity. And I related to the consistent reports of she's incredibly intelligent, but disordered and doesn't fit in with her peers at all. She needs to try harder. Of teachers banning me from certain classes, and of me becoming violently sick most days because of the fear, sadness, and anxiety that came with school. That cuts a person so deeply when you're trying it so hard and still can't seem to please anyone, and they don't see just how much work you're putting into it. It's still painful for me to think back on my own memories. Even my parents didn't think I was trying hard enough. Finally, Chloe was diagnosed, and the doctors told her parents that if they didn't take her out of school, that she would literally die. So they pulled her out of school and homeschooled her. Now, I was also homeschooled, and I've never attended regular school, so I can't relate to everything she talks about, but I am glad now, even though I used to hate being homeschooled, that I was allowed to pursue my passions in an environment that catered to my needs and protected me from a lot of stress and bullying that I could have experienced. When Chloe eventually chose to go to a mainstream college, she was able to succeed because she had a solid foundation. Now, knowing who she was and how to stand up for herself, she calls for a change in the system that leads autistic students to have the worst outcomes of all disabled students. Chapter 3 is all about sensory issues, stimming, meltdowns, shutdowns, and burnout. I love this chapter and how Chloe uses her own experiences to explain what these things are and how to deal with it. I totally agree with her when she says, why are we determined to change the child rather than the world around them? And when you grow up not knowing you're autistic, you tend to mask your stimming and other behaviors that you understand that people see them as odd or weird, and you get ridiculed for it. But trying to mask and pass as neurotypical just so that you fit in is going to lead to more burnout and shutdowns, which are so harmful for autistic people. Why should we have to change to fit the world around us? It should go both ways. We should be aware of the expectations and norms of neurotypical society just as much as they need to learn and be educated on how to interact with us, so that no one needs to feel like they have to mask who they are. Change the environment, not force the person to fit into a mold. She goes on to say that stimming is a normal, necessary part of human existence, and it's something we need to normalize, understand, accept, and grow comfortable with. As I've gotten older and realized that society's expectations are only as firm as we allow them to be, I've discovered that allowing myself to unmask and be my authentic autistic self, stims and all, has unleashed more ability than I ever had when I was locking myself away. And it's true. We all stim to a certain degree, autistic or allistic, neurotypical. You sit at your desk and you click your pen when you're talking on the phone. That's stimming. But autistic stimming, well, it's hard to differentiate it. We usually do it more and in different ways. And I agree. When I started unmasking and allowing myself to bounce my leg more and just move in these more autistic ways, I wasn't using up so much of my brain power to mask. And so I had more energy and was able to be more creative and just, I don't know, felt happier and more myself when I wasn't putting all of my energy into just passing as neurotypical. Chapter 4 is the proof that autistics aren't antisocial loners. Chloe's attempts to make friends and repeatedly getting ditched are so relatable. I too remember longing for a friend who would see past my labels and my outward appearances to see me for me and love that. I feel sad for both of us as little girls, so lost and alone. And Chloe encourages readers not to give up in their quest for friendships. Every single one of us has our own story with our own once upon a times, our own adventure stages, our own happily ever afters. And just like all fairy tales, each of our stories also includes the sidekicks, and the villains. In your story, you're the main character. You're the hero. It's only fair. We all deserve our main character moment. But who are you in someone else's story? What part are you going to play? Are you going to be the sidekick? Are you going to be the person who helps someone else's story continue just by being there? By showing kindness? By showing understanding? We're all living in a fairy tale, and you need to choose who you will play. Because if you don't actively choose your part, someone else is going to pick it for you, and there is every chance that you may be the villain. Every single one of us has the ability to be someone's sidekick, not in spite of our own differences, but because of them. And the next 6 chapters are equally full of gold as they dive into mental health. Now, to make it absolutely clear, mental health is not a synonym for bad mental health. It's all states, good or bad. Mental health is just health. We live in a society that stigmatizes mental health, in which just the term mental health is taboo and unspoken. And yet it's something each and every one of us has. If you don't see a doctor when you're suffering from poor physical health, you're seen as crazy. Well, if you do see a doctor for poor mental health, you're seen as, well, crazy. Mental health shouldn't be associated with negativity, horror movies, sickness, and despair. It shouldn't be associated with weakness, fragility, or feebleness. It should be associated with all of us, with our everyday, with our always. It is okay to reach out, to seek help, to need someone, because the bottom line is that we all need help sometimes. Who are you to believe that you don't need the same support? Chloe also talks about the diagnosis process and the use of controversial terms like functioning labels or using the term Asperger's. Here, I will say that Chloe is wrong in saying that Asperger narcissistically named the condition after himself. He was a quiet, a humble man whose work remained largely unknown outside of Austria until the 1980s, when it was brought to the world by another autism researcher in Britain, Lorna Wing. Chloe includes advice for both parents of a child with an autism diagnosis and those with the diagnosis themselves on settling into who you are, finding what makes your eyes sparkle, and what are your gifts, and how you can take your experience with all its struggles and heartache and build out of that a platform upon which others can find community. Different, not less includes advice and relatable stories from every stage of life, childhood to adulthood and everything in between. It doesn't hold back from expressing the heartache, but it is persistently positive and never guilts you for doing what is best for you, even if it's not environmentally friendly or always politically correct. The book ends with support resources divided by regions: Australia, Ireland, and the UK, and the US and Canada. Overall, I rate different, not less, a 4. So, what does being different mean to you? And how have you learned to embrace your authentic, weird, and wormy self? Let me know down in the comments, because I want to celebrate your wins and build a strong and supportive neurodivergent community. And thanks so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, please like and share. And if you're looking for more neurodivergent media content, then click here to see my latest review. And of course, don't forget to comment what you would like me to review next, and subscribe so you don't miss the latest recommendation.